Well, good morning. How's it going, Bobby Dino?
Mike Bolin.
Hey,
We're here.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a special episode of Mindset Squared today. Our usual co-host, Mike Cernovich, is on holiday, if you will, in Florida with the family. So Bobby Dino is sitting in today for Mike Cernovich.
I am. That's a big seat to fill right there.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so you've got a great social media following. You're a really unique guy, yeah, and you got an interesting background, and so let's let's delve into that, because certainly there's a lot of folks out there that don't know who Bobby Dino is.
Sure.
And so just maybe a minute or two snippet on what makes you unique versus the 5,000 other social media influencers out there.
Sure. So when I was 23 years old, I was a directionless young man that
a wayward youth.
A wayward youth.
Okay.
My father had passed away before I was born, so I didn't have really any direction in that sense. I was living with my grandparents who, they're old. It's easy to pull the wool over their eyes.
Sure.
And so I was just this kid that was running around, essentially up to no good. I ended up...
Where'd you live?
I lived in Orange County.
Orange County.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
well, that's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's Huntington Beach and all that different Surf City. It's nice.
Okay.
But so I was this dummy kid that ended up getting in trouble. I got into an altercation with someone, and unfortunately, a bystander that wasn't even part of the altercation got hurt, and that's what I more or less got cracked for. I was given a prison sentence. Went to prison for originally 5 years. While I was inside, I picked up another sentence because I was running around with bad dudes in there, and picked up another 6 years. So I had this 11-year sentence total. And about 5 years in, I just had this epiphany that if I didn't do something to change my life and do something for the better, be a good guy,
right,
that I was going to die in that place, whether somebody got me or whether I just never got out. So while I was inside, I just turned my life around, started going for the positives, started writing, started working with people that needed help. And when I came home, I was very I didn't like to talk about the prison aspect.
Sure.
Experience. It was very stigmatic to me, to where it was like, I mean, I had my wife, my daughter, who was a very young. She's only 9 now, so she was, real young. But from a little girl, I would tell her, "Don't say prison, don't say any," because I didn't want anyone to know.
Okay.
It was actually my wife that about a year and a half back, 2 years, she said, "You're really good at writing. You should write about these experiences and put them out." And it was one of those things to where I was like, I don't know, So I had a social media following. I was on Twitter. I think I had about 120 followers.
Okay. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah,
Everybody
no.
starts somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, it wasn't anything,
Yeah,
like
you
large
weren't working at it.
Right.
I mean, anybody can build a following, right? If they can say some cool stuff or
Right.
say some interesting stuff, and then they're real consistent with it. It's just,
Right.
if you have 125 followers, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not interesting. It
Oh,
just
yeah.
means you just don't put a lot of information out there.
For sure. And
Yeah.
and you're not putting in necessarily the effort to grow it like somebody who's really
Exactly.
trying to grow it. But even then, growing the social media aspect, that wasn't so much on my mind as it was just like, hey, I'm going to put these stories out that people have been liking, and let's see if the rest of the world likes them. And they did, or they do. I started getting requests to speak at places, I requests for appearances.
Yeah.
So it's turned out quite well for me.
So you're like one of these guys that you went into the joint, and it sounds like you spent a lot of time there.
It was 10 years.
10
altogether.
years, so a decade.
A decade.
And miraculously, probably unlike most folks, you were able to go in, dealt with what you dealt with there, and then came out and actually saw your life take a parabolic move upwards, where you not just turned things around, but just exploded with being a productive member of society, if you will.
Yeah, sure. And that didn't start like when I hit the street. So about halfway through my sentence, I had to. Prison is a very racial environment, especially in California. You would think like California being super liberal, like everybody, singing Kumbaya and holding hands and all that. It's not like that in California prisons. California prison is the most racial place I've ever been in my life, like hands down. Everything is race to the point to where, I mean, if you were dying of thirst and I had a glass of water, but you're a different race than me, like you can't get that water because you're this and I'm that. I mean, just really hardcore outlandish rules. Well, about halfway through, I had to tell these dudes I'm not running around with you anymore.
Okay.
And I did that at the risk of my health, to say the least. I mean, it could have gone really bad for me.
Yeah.
Now these guys had kind of seen what I was about up until that time, and it was essentially I told them I'm not running around, and if anybody's got a problem with me not, with me living my own life,
right,
we can go handle business somewhere where the cops won't find out. Because at that point in my mind, I was like, I'm either going to die here or I'm going to live my life.
Yeah.
So
you had to break away.
Oh,
You're breaking away.
Yeah, I broke away. I was on my own, had no backup, no whatever. But I had a plan. And so they had vocations in there. One of the vocations they had was welding. I got into welding. I looked to see which unions, because I had a background, which unions would take me, where I could work to make money. I didn't buy into the mindset of, oh, now that I'm a felon, I'm just going to be broke dick the rest of my life and not be able to do anything. So I got out and started working in the oil refineries, and I did 6 figures my first year out.
Wow.
I mean, it was I hit the ground running.
And that's just doing doing the vocation that you learned when you were in there. So you learned welding. You're able to take this skill,
right,
and then get out and at least earn a living doing that as soon as you get out.
It was a good living too. Yeah. And so what happened then, my wife has a kind of an adventurous spirit like I do. She's an immigrant. She's Armenian. So she knows about moving places and doing stuff. And we had made this money and we had a nut essentially. And neither one of us liked Southern California too much. It was kind of a little overcrowded. And so we had it in this thing to where we were talking to each other and we're like, let's move. Let's just do it. We'll pick a date and we'll be gone by that date and we'll go.
So it's almost like another breaking point for you, where you just, like, when you were in there, you broke away from a group of guys that you were hanging out with. And then once you get out, you kind of get going on things, make some money, and you're like, you know what, it's time for another shift. And sometimes just changing the environment can change everything.
Yeah, and I've always been the type to where, especially being in there for so long, in like one place, even you're in the building, you're in the yard, it's like that's your whole world. It's essentially like, if you can imagine like being in school and having the playground, it's like that's it. That's all right? Right. And I've always wanted to see the world, but especially being trapped like that, it was like when I got out, I wanted to see everything. I all I could think about was just a ticking clock going by and me missing out. So moving to Northern California, it was to see a new place, but it was also to prove to myself that I could do it anywhere.
Right.
And that was a big thing for me. And then plus I had the money to where I was able to, buy a house and, get things going. So it was a good shift.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. So you've written a book and, you do a lot of writing on top of that, right?
Yeah,
and so
yes, I do.
Folks can find you
BobbyDino.com.
BobbyDino.com.
There you go. It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the stuff that I write would be considered true crime genre, but essentially what it is, the most outrageous, gnarliest, craziest stuff that happened while I was in there, I write about it.
Oh, wow.
And I try and work in the lessons, because there's a lesson in everything. You learn. Well, and
you've got because I'm on your email list, so you send out some stories from time to time, and I've clicked over and read some of those, and I mean some of them are pretty fascinating. It's just kind of fascinating to read. But you had one recently. It was called Baby Oil, and we don't need to get into the whole thing, but it's interesting how you write those stories, and I guess, whether it's fictionalized or maybe the names are fictionalized or whatever it is, but this is stuff that you saw, witnessed, whatever, while you were there, and it really gives you a peek behind the scenes, and not in a Hollywood way, but the actual
gritty
stuff of what was happening. And so anyway, anybody that's interested in that could definitely, they can go to your website, right? And then they can register for an email.
Oh, sure. You can do that right on the landing page, bobbydino.com. You can get on the email list.
And I personally have read these stories. I mean, they're very, it's almost like one of those things. Sometimes you start reading stuff and you're like, not interesting, next. But I haven't found that with your writing. When I've sat down to read something that you've written, these short stories or whatever, it's you got a great style to your writing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but also, just very interesting content. So I think anybody that's interested in that.
Yeah, and by the way, these stories, only because you brought it up, the only thing I change are the names. So it's like I'm not putting people's real name out there, but the event or whatever I'm writing about, that happened. Like that's I'm not doing fiction with those.
Okay.
And part of that, well, the main reason with that is we all learn these lessons in life, and sometimes we can learn them easy, so to speak.
Right.
So like you and I can have a disagreement, and it's like I can walk away from that and go, I should have done this better. I should have done that. And there's no harm, no foul, essentially.
Right.
So where in there, you can have a disagreement and the guy comes with a spear because he's going to try and kill you.
Right.
So it's like, I'm trying to.
So it's a little different, and you're forced to learn these.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like putting that out because I like giving people the extremes, because people are so used to that easy way. To where it's like, hey man, it can go all the way bad if you're not careful. And that's one of the things that, especially to the youth, to the young guys, young girls too, it's like, that's not a road you want to go down.
Right.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know. I to me, and I think most people find this the case, is that it's always interesting to hear the come up story, if you will, of somebody who has failed at one thing and then they're able to pivot over. And I don't know if it's rebirth or rebrand or whatever you want to call it, but they're able to take their life and go in a different direction that's more productive. And those kind of stories to me are always fascinating. I've dealt with, setbacks. Everyone in the world's dealt with setbacks. The difference is that a lot of people, hit that setback and then they just kind of throttle back.
Right.
And, they end up in a dead-end job somewhere, and they're just treading water for the next 20 or 30 years.
Right.
And so to me, it's sad. And I hate to see that. And so I always like to push people forward who are able to take, something that traumatic that happened in their life and then completely change everything for the better. And that's what I find so interesting about you and so many people that are in my orbit of friends, if you will, is, a lot of my friends, and we have some mutual friends, have faced adversity, you being one of them, and are able to take that and turn your mess into your message.
Right. And that was the craziest thing. The craziest thing about this gig was that, like I had said earlier, I had basically trained my family, don't talk about prison. Okay, just don't say that word. Don't. The second that I embraced it and said, okay, you know what? Just like you said, I'm gonna make this, instead of make it like having it be a mess in my life, I'm gonna make it a message.
Yes.
My trajectory for success just went whoop, like that. So it was like the second I stopped being something else and just started being me.
Right. Embrace your truth.
Oh my God. It just took off through the root.
In a lot of ways, and I mean, I hate to say this, but in a lot of ways, that is, maybe it was a gift from God, what happened, in that it created, because the only reality we experience is right now, right? We don't experience the past.
Right. Exactly.
We don't experience the future.
Exactly.
So we're where we are right now.
Yes.
And you had to go through this fire, and maybe that fire forged you into what you are today. Certainly it did.
Yeah.
And so, but you're able to take that and hammer that, if you will, into, this story, and you're able to take that and then help people too. So you have, you do different things, but like one of the things you do is you've got this course that you just put together
Sure.
about, situational awareness, and like being able to go into a situation, whether it be, a bar at 1 a.m, or whether it be a Walmart, where some weird thing's going down, or you're inside a bank and somebody walks in and robs that or something. You're able, you've got a course that teaches people about situational awareness. And, tell me for a minute or two, what in the world is this situational awareness thing? Like, how would you describe that? And how does it help somebody like me who, quite frankly, I live in Napa Valley. I feel pretty safe, but
Yeah.
Shit can go down anywhere.
Anywhere, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So situational awareness is essentially how your environment and how you relate to it. Okay. Like you were saying earlier, we create our own reality.
Yes.
That's one the way that we're able to take a mess and turn it into a message. Mike and I were in Romania. We both spoke at the Romanian War Room Summit, and the topic that I had there was situational awareness. After I spoke about it, I had a lot of people approaching me saying, "Hey, are you going to do a course about that? Are you going to put something out about that? Because I would love for so and so to see it, or whichever."
Yeah.
So that was really like the foundation of, okay, yeah, I need to make a course about it. And what it is it's not necessarily just about the bad guy, right? It's not just about oh, I'm somewhere and something's happening. You can use situational awareness everywhere, sitting right here, with friends, with loved ones, with coworkers. It's essentially paying attention. And people, even though that sounds so easy, so basic, people don't pay attention like they used to, or like they should. You see people walking down the street, their faces in their phone. You see people going places, and they aren't looking or seeing anything around them. I've seen these horrible videos, like they're closed circuit TV things of where like crime has happened, or something like that. Someone getting kidnapped or a female getting assaulted or whatever. And it was as simple as, if they would have just looked,
right?
Like if they would have just been aware, they wouldn't have gotten into that mess. And that's what I teach in this course, essentially, is how to be aware, how to keep your eyes open, how to survey what's going on, how to project yourself, because that plays a big part into it. Example, if you're someone that's got good posture, your head's up, you're erect, you're looking, you make much less of a target to the predator bad guy versus someone that's, kind of slouched and walking down and
I see. So you make yourself a hard target.
Exactly.
Okay.
Situational awareness starts with you because you do create your reality.
Now, I guess it goes without saying that a lot of this craft, if you will, that you've learned and put together, you learned in your prior life.
Well, yeah. So that's kind of, I guess.
I would imagine in the joint, right? You've got to have the situational awareness 24/7. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things. So my unique perspective from this, because you'll get guys that'll talk about situational awareness that are like either martial arts experts or ex-cops or whichever, and that's great. They have, you can learn from anywhere. I can watch one of their videos and learn something too. Who knows?
Yeah.
My thing is that I didn't learn it from like a 9-to-5 gig to where I got to take my badge off and go home and go to bed.
Right.
My thing was I had to live that 24/7. I had no backup.
For a decade.
Yeah, and people that you could think are on your same team or whatever, they might try and get you too, smile in your face and knife you in the back. So it's really a thing about being aware, reading people's body language. You're familiar with...
So it's how to play chess in real life.
It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
You can develop it. It's a skill that you can develop just like any other skill or any other discipline, to where you'll actually almost start to become prescient, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's like you will get your spidey senses will start to tingle, when something's going on and you're like, no, It's developing that type of mindset versus just walking through the world completely unaware.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that your background, it's another example of how you're able to take this crappy background and then spin gold out of that, right? And I think that that's a great message, though, for a lot of people is so many people want to put on that mask, right? And they want to be something that they're really not. And I found that with my own social media is as I just embrace more of who I am, then people respond to that more than me trying to emulate somebody else or take like an element of somebody else that I really like and trying to smash myself into that mold. It just doesn't work, right? I mean, we've all heard these cliches, like, there's a zillion of, Donald Trumps out there. There's a zillion Barack Obamas out there, right? And you don't need to be that, right? You need to be you. And I think that it is fascinating to me that you can take something as terrible as going to prison for a decade and then spin that into something that's commendable. Oh, it's commendable to you to be able to do that, because most people don't do that. I mean, it's an empirical fact, right? That most people that get out end up going back in. So when so obviously they didn't do this, what you're doing.
At the height of, so when I came home, recidivism in California was hovering somewhere around 80-85%.
Incredible.
Yeah. Now it's at 67. So even that is 3 people get out, 2 go back in.
Right.
And it's people get caught in the cycle.
Well, maybe some of that has to do with the vocational training. I'm a big proponent of that. I mean, if somebody goes to my Twitter account, you'll see I talk about that actually quite a bit, about how college is not necessarily where you need to be, that this vocational stuff. And so maybe some of that you're talking about comes from this vocational training where you picked up welding there. So at least you're able to have a real hard skill when you get out. And I mean, these trade jobs are always in demand.
Oh, yeah.
Always in demand.
And for anybody that does have a record, let's say you do have a felony on your record and you think like, oh, there's nothing I can do, I can't make good money or whatever. These unions, especially construction unions or something similar to that, like I worked in oil refineries and power plants.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, they'll take you with a felony. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, in California now, we got the new law, the ban the box law. So you're not allowed to ask people anymore if they have a felony.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. Look how easy you guys got it now. I mean, geez, wow, that's pretty cool.
Well, I think the thought is, and this is a policy. A lot of people give California a lot of crap for different.
And rightfully so most of the time.
Policies that, we definitely have our set of issues. I mean, there's so many great things about California. I absolutely love living here, by the way. I love it, and I don't have any plans to leave. But I will say that there's some legislation that comes through that really makes sense. And to me, it's like, listen, if Bobby did his time, you did your time, right? And so you're done. And so why in the world would we want to penalize somebody who's already done their time? I mean, you want to get these people mainstreamed and back into being a productive member of society, not going back into whatever the heck they were doing that got them put there, right? So in the ban the box legislation in California, which is, I think it's the only state that has it, is you're not allowed as an employer to ask if somebody has a prior record.
Wow, okay.
So,
here's the thing. One of the reasons, and this is my opinion from being there and seeing how the system works, one of the fallacies of prison and why we see a lot of this recidivism is the whole way that it's run and the whole way that the individual is classified and housed in those places. I'll give you an example. The kid that's just coming in on a 16-month sentence for his first time, and like maybe he, stole something out of a car or whatever.
Sure.
That kid should not be living with a 3-time psychopathic doing life murderer.
Right.
They shouldn't, because that kid still has a chance. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
There's still something that can spin it, but what happens is in the classification process, all these people get lumped together. So when I say like I hung out with murderers and with that was real. Like they were. I mean, I was really with these people that did awful, nasty things. You know, and the point being is that if you want to get somebody to where they're going to actually be a productive member of society, it can't just be like how it was when I got out. You go through this thing, they give you have somebody send you clothes, and you come into like this little area, and they take your picture, and then they drive you out to the gate, and they've got an envelope with $200 cash in it, and they're like, here you go, and you've got someone there to pick you up, or they put you on the bus, essentially. But I mean, that's it. So for me, just getting out, if I didn't have a plan, right, it would have been 10 years, and then here's a couple $100, good luck.
Right.
You can't.
So you got to take that and you took the responsibility.
Well,
you learned a skill.
Right. But
most don't.
But the thing is that if you're a guy that's inside, and for anybody that has any loved ones that may be incarcerated, or maybe, here's the deal. Don't wait until you're going home and then go, okay, I'm out now. I'm going to get into what my plan is and all that. No. If you know you're I started doing all my research and doing all my stuff like 3 years before I got out. And it was because I knew I was going to have the time to learn the skill. I was going to have the time to research where and what and how I was going to go, so that way when I did get out, 2 weeks later, I was working.
Yeah.
If you wait until the last minute, it's not going to work out for you. And that's I think another big issue that the prisons have is they used to call it CDC. It was the California Department of Corrections. And then when Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor, they added an R to it. It was the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Okay.
The rehabilitation isn't really there.
Yeah.
It's there in name, but it's not there in practice.
Well, it sounds like the skills and stuff, like the trade school stuff's there.
Yeah, it is.
And
it is.
I'm sure they got a library and stuff like that. But again, you've got to take it on yourself to do this stuff.
Right.
Okay, so shifting gears here a little bit, because I'm sure that a lot of people wonder this same thing. So let me ask you. You're there. You're there for 10 years. Explain to me what it's like the day before you get out. You've been there for 9 years and 364 days, okay, or whatever it was.
Yeah, close to it, yeah.
But you know that you're getting out tomorrow, okay? So bring me through your very last day there. I'm sure you remember it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been in all this time. I mean, that's a long freaking time.
Yeah, it was.
10 years, a long time. So
but
tell
it goes
me,
by like that after it's done. It's weird.
Yeah, but tell me what it's like the day your very last day there. What's that like?
Okay, so first of all, telling people your release date when you're inside can be dangerous.
Okay.
And here's why. Because you got to remember, all these you're clumped in this concentrated group of just the worst of the worst that California has to offer.
Right.
Okay. So it's not like me and Mike talking, who Mike's a good guy, he's got to. No, it's like the people are around you, they're there for being bad. Like that's the whole thing, right?
Okay.
So you don't really give out your release date, because what can happen is if someone, like, let's say you've got stuff, or you've got, property, different types of property or whatever, people can come up to you, maybe want to get crazy with you, maybe want to take and they're banking on, oh, well, he's going home tomorrow, so he's not going to do anything. Oh, he don't want no problems. He's almost out of here. So
you keep it secret is what you're telling me.
Right. Well, you don't advertise it. So I mean, I had a group of people that were all different races by the time I left, because like I said, I wasn't running with the whites at that time. And for a small group of people, they were mainly lifers. I let them know, because these were guys that, even though they were doing life, there was a few guys in there that I found that had unfortunately seen the error of their ways too late, because they had a life sentence.
Yeah.
But it was almost like talking to these guru type guys. They were very, some of them were very zenned out and just kind of, been there for 30 or 40 years already. I mean, just crazy. But so for them, okay, hey man, I'm leaving, here's my stuff. Hey, you want a radio? Here's this, here's that. You're kind of giving stuff away. And then it's just that excitement that you're going to be waking up at 3 a.m. by some guard saying, okay, time to get out of here. But it's not an enjoyable thing to where you're jumping up and down going, I'm going home tomorrow, yay. Because there's people that aren't going home.
Right.
And even though to the rational mind, like to me or you, to where we'd be like, hey, congratulations, you're gonna to them, they're just like, oh, screw that guy. Oh, I'm gonna get that. Oh, you know what? I can do this or that, or I can. And it's just this very.
Well, so what did you do? So you had your last meal there.
Yeah,
you go to the cafeteria like normal. I mean, is it like you're just anticipating that you're going to be out the next day?
Right. So essentially, all I did was I really stuck to myself. Yeah, I did go to meals like normal, but that last night I kind of played Santa Claus, went around, gave people different property that I had.
Okay.
Because I mean, I don't need it. I'm going home.
Right.
You know, these guys are here forever. You know, so. And then just really stayed to myself. I mean, as much as you'd think like it would be like this celebration or something like that, it's not. I mean, you're happy that you're getting out, but you're not trying to.
You don't want to broadcast.
You don't want to broadcast it. No.
So what time? You said 3. They come and get you at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
On the day of release.
Yeah. So what happens is you'll be asleep, and all of a sudden, you know, the CO, the correctional officer, comes, you know, and he's, hey, wake up, you know, gives you a shake or whatever, and you get up. They take you out of the building. You go through the support area, which essentially gets you off the yard. You go to their intake building, where they take everybody in.
Sure.
And then they process you out, and it's a very strange feeling.
Now, do they, just like in the movies, do they give you a plastic bag with your watch and all that crap in it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
And there's a cell over there, and they give you your set, and they change out of those state issue clothes and get your clothes on.
So you get the outfit that you wore there 10 years
prior?
No.
I mean, maybe some people do. I don't know, but I know what I did and what normally people did is you have somebody send you something.
I see.
If you're really indigent, like you just got nothing, you can buy sweats or something off of the catalog and just go out in a sweatsuit if you want.
I see. All right. So then they process you. They give you your stuff. There must be a door.
Yeah. No. So actually, what it is, and it's a really trippy feeling too, because all that time that you're there, like there's areas that are like no-go areas, and they're by fences or buildings to where there's a line, and like if you go like past that line, they can shoot you. Like I mean, like they will kill you. You know, if you're trying to do whichever, right? So you've been living in this environment the whole time to where the people that are making sure you stay there are like, don't get out of line or we're gonna fucking kill you. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's your clothes, bro, and $200. Have a good one. Yeah. And it's kind of a head trip because you're in this place the whole time, and then all of a sudden it's just like, hey, peace. You know, we're not going to kill you anymore. Goodbye.
Yeah.
you know, so that was kind of a weird thing for me.
So explain. So you go through a couple doors, what? And and then boom, you're in the sunlight or what?
No, so essentially what it is there's the intake building. They process you, make sure that you're you know, and process you out and give you your clothes and all that. And then a van comes up to the front of the intake building. You get in the van. If you're someone that doesn't have someone to pick you up, they'll bring you to the bus stop and make sure you get on the bus to somewhere else, because the prison where I was at, they had an agreement to where they didn't just release them into the city.
I see.
You know, they put them on a bus and sent them to wherever they were going.
So they got to go back to San Francisco or wherever they're from or whatever. Okay.
Right. But for me, I got on a regular little van. It took me from there to out. There's like this, I don't know if they call this area that Sallyport or not, but it's like a Sallyport type area to where there's a guard up here. They come around, they're looking underneath the cars.
Okay,
You know, it's still locked in. And then through there, you go out. They bring you out essentially to the front, like to where like if you were a visitor, you know, you'd come and park. And then they wait, like, okay, where's your people? Is that your people? Okay, there. And for me, it was my wife, you know, and she's like, hey, you know, and then I got to go and hug and kiss my wife. The guy gave me, you know what was funny? Here's something a little weird. So the guard that brought me out, right, and this is just some little weird thing that happened, but I'm all happy to see my wife, you know, and I get the envelope, and she looks at it and she goes, this isn't you. And it had a name on it, right? And I look inside and there's not even $200, because what happens is if you leave owing the state money, they'll take it from that $200 that they give you, right?
Okay.
So it was only like 100 and some change, right? And I'm like, wait a second. So my wife honks the horn at the guard, and he comes back, and my wife's like, hey, you gave the wrong. And the guy, because you're not supposed to do that, you know, everybody's supposed to get their right shit, right?
Right.
The guard on the spot started having a nosebleed. And I was just like, oh my God, we just fucking killed this dude right now. Like, don't die, you know, I'm just getting out of here. Don't, it's not gonna look. But guard started, and he was like, oh shit, hold on. And he jumped in the van and went out because the guy had already gotten in the car with his ride.
Oh, wow.
Went and stopped them, was like, did the envelopes back. But it was a trip because like he got so stressed out about it that it was like instantly his nose started bleeding. I was
Interesting.
like, oh yeah. Well, these guys are stressed out anyways.
Okay, so you get out, you get in the car.
Uh-huh.
Did you go to lunch? Did you go to dinner? I mean, what did you do? What did you do your first day out?
First day out. So
did you go have a nice steak dinner or something?
Yeah, I mean, we did all. It was just. So the first day out, we went back to Orange County. I had a place in Anaheim that I was renting, and on the way there, I think we stopped at a Carl's Jr. And I just had like a big, nice double Western bacon burger. It was just like, oh my God, you know? Because all the stuff you hear about prison food, it's true, it's awful.
Yeah,
it's awful, and it's small portions, and I think that's a way that they try and keep people's sizes smaller, maybe because if you want to get big, you have to like buy more food. Like you can't just do it on the rations they're giving you. But so I'm eating this great food. I think we stopped by a Macy's. I got some new threads.
Right.
And
but it's got to be weird that first day, just being like going into a mall. I mean, that's got to be a really unique experience mentally to go into a shopping mall after being in prison for 10 years.
So here's the thing, that there were some things. I worked very hard not to get institutionalized, like not to become like that was the game that I was running, and hey Holmes, whatever, and like I worked not to do that because it's easy to fall into. A couple things that tripped me out when I came home. People didn't have respect of like personal space.
Sure.
So like I'd be somewhere and somebody'd like be looking at something and they'd just be like, and I'm thinking, excuse me, who the hell are you? Like what? But it's like they're normal people. They aren't.
There's no threat level.
Right. And, to them, they're not thinking the same way that I think. Because I respect people's personal space, and that's just, you had to do that or you would be in problems. That, and then the way people dressed. So this is a little dumb, but because my wife wears yoga pants too, the whole yoga pants thing.
Oh yeah.
That tripped me out because I was like, they don't put any skirts or anything over that. I mean, like it was weird to me, so there were like these little things to where
that you really noticed now that you're out.
Yeah, it was just like, wow, man, it's like, what, you don't want to cover up or so little stuff like that. But it was mainly the way that people interacted. I was so used to this have respect for everyone and come respectfully and if you give respect, demand respect back essentially. Yeah. And people in the real world just aren't that respectful.
So it's the interpersonal communication is quite a bit different from inside to outside.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really interesting stuff. So I guess as folks can see, there's a lot here. There's a lot of really interesting information that Bobby has. Again, you can go to his website, check it out.
BobbyDino.com.
Yeah.
It's easy.
I mean, if you want to check out the course, that's awesome. Get on the email list. I mean, I like reading it. There's just a lot of interesting stuff there. And these are some, really interesting anecdotes. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
And anybody that is, I'm doing this for Mike's show. Anybody that wants to get the course, if you go through the checkout and you put in what type of what should we name the code? You got a fancy name?
Oh, you can just call it Cernovich.
Okay, yeah. We'll just call the code Cernovich.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it as soon as this is done. You go through. You want to get the course for the double Mike's audience only. I'll give 30% off using the code Cernovich. So
very cool.
Go through Cernovich. And thanks for watching and tuning in. That's my thank you to you.
Okay, so you can, as always, you can find myself at MikeBolin.com and then Cernovich, of course, at Cernovich.com. Yeah. So, and then Mike, all of his stuff is, I believe, scrolling along the bottom of the screen here. So you guys know where to find us. But anyway, this has been a unique episode of Mindset Squared. And Bobby Dino, it was awesome having you here.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.